In the heart of America's deep south is the world's largest river swamp. Ancient trees guard silent waterways, a place few dare to penetrate. It is a dark and mysterious water world. Okefenokee. April in the deep south. A prehistoric sound signals a male alligator's claim to mate. Here, size really does matter. Only those over 2 meters get to breed. The biggest male rules a harem of about 10 devoted females. He doesn't tolerate interlopers. His mating is surprisingly tender. Rubbing, touching, and blowing bubbles. By late June, his females are ready to produce the results of those amorous encounters. Each one lays up to 50 eggs in her carefully constructed nest. It will be another 2 months before the babies are ready to hatch. The mother stays close whilst the embryos grow, ready to defend them from any opportunistic predators roaming this swamp. She lives in one of the last great wildlife refuges of the American South. It follows the course of the Okefenokee River. Over 200 kilometers long, it's born of the Mississippi and the Red River and heads due south before spilling into the Gulf of Mexico. The swamp it creates is twice the size of Luxembourg. Over 5,500 square kilometers of flooded forests, lakes, marshes, and bayous. Thousand-year-old gnarled cypresses are guardians of these dark waters. Each trails a robe of Spanish moss. Over the centuries, this tree has grown to over 40 meters. It flourishes in the wet where others fail. Its roots and knobbly cypress knees anchor precious soil that would otherwise be swept downriver. It helps to create the ground on which other swamp vegetation thrives. The dense undergrowth hides a top predator. So elusive that most swamp people have never actually seen one. A bobcat. the only wild feline in these parts. She's solitary and mainly nocturnal, twice the size of a domestic cat, and an expert hunter. One of nearly 1 million spread across the country. But she has to watch her step. Her arch enemy is the alligator. Trapping, shooting, and road accidents also take their toll. Luckily, there is help for a bobcat in need. Pamela Kay runs the Louisiana Bobcat Refuge.
Even though they may look tame and they're not as big as a lion or a tiger, they are very dangerous.
A trapper brought this female in with a broken leg, and it's taken time to mend. In the wild, she would have died.
Fortunately, that foot did not have to be amputated, which would have made it hard to release this animal back into the wild. But we were able to get it back to good health, and we've been working on predation skills so that it can survive in the wild on its own once it's released.
This means feeding it live prey to encourage it to hunt again.
It would be inhumane for me to release an animal not knowing that they could provide for themselves in the wild. That would almost be a death sentence.
Instinct soon kicks in. She begins to stalk. But then she has a change of heart. For now, this reluctant hunter must remain in care. In August, a new sound cuts through the swamp air. The signal the alligator mother is waiting for. Her babies are about to hatch, and they need her help. Toughened tips on their snouts tear through their rubbery shells. But some still struggle. Jaws that crush bone and tear flesh gently crack the fragile shell to release the baby. The hatchlings are just 25 centimeters long and weigh less than a tennis ball. In the safety of their mother's jaws, each one hitches a ride to the water. She stirs up the rich mud to expose small creatures for her young to hunt. alligators can't chew, so dinner can be hard to swallow. But the little hatchlings are still vulnerable. Only 1 out of every 17 will survive. There's danger everywhere. Blue herons stalk the water's edge. Hungry gar eye the alligator babies from below. And it's a mistake to trust your own kind. Occasionally, even fish hunters like ospreys will grab a baby alligator. But this pair have other things on their minds. They're raising their own family. They have returned to the same patch of swamp for years, to a rickety pile of sticks on top of a cypress. By early summer, their one surviving chick is 8 weeks old and almost ready to fly. Surrounded by water, it has little to fear from land predators. And its parents will fend off assaults from the air. Sun and heat are the greatest threats. Temperatures can rise to almost 40 degrees Celsius. Keeping her chick cool is a constant challenge for the mother. And it needs non-stop feeding. The osprey father has his work cut out. He needs to catch up to 10 fish every day. Soaring over 30 meters above the water, he hunts endlessly. It's not easy. Glare from the surface of the water masks the prey. But he is perfectly designed for the job. Nostrils close on impact, talons snap shut on touch. Reversible outer toes and rough scales on his talons help grasp the slippery prey. This one he keeps for himself. But even away from the nest, there are hungry beaks waiting. Brash and bold, a crow makes a hopeful approach. But outside the family, ospreys don't do sharing. As long as the Atchafalaya Basin remains healthy and stable, this is osprey heaven. But it's a fragile paradise. Atchafalaya is the receiving end of the gigantic Mississippi River system. 31 US states drain into it. Their problems are dumped onto Atchafalaya, including floods and pollution. And new alien species. Some of its bayous are chocked with fast-spreading invasive greenery, Duckweed and other floating plants form a thick blanket that starves the water of oxygen. South American water hyacinths spread like wildfire. In just 6 days, they can double their surface area. The water level can rise and fall by over 5 meters during the year, and everything must adapt. Atchophyllaea cypresses need change. They thrive in standing water, but their seeds need to germinate on land and can only grow when the swamp waters recede. And they're not the only ones to respond to the fluctuating water levels. Over 60 different species of amphibian and reptiles here come in all shapes and sizes. At night, they create a wall of sound. And the swamp becomes a confusing maze of featureless mosquito-ridden channels. But tonight, a team of scientists has a job to do. Their mission is to assess the status of thousands of frogs, toads, and other amphibians that emerge after sunset.
Got him.
Hardin Waddell from the US Geological Survey is their leader.
We try to capture all the different things so we can make sure about what species it is. We'll measure them. The frogs can tell us a lot about the health of the system. We also check them over real quickly for any kind of malformations, deformities, anything that indicates, poor health in the population. And because, there are a lot of places around the world where they've been declining, disappearing, species have gone extinct, or populations have crashed, it's important to monitor how they're doing here.
A deadly fungus is killing millions of amphibians worldwide. So far, Atchophyllaea's been spared.
This is one of the most common frogs out here, and that's a big female.
So this is a really large bullfrog.
These guys are voracious predators. I mean, they eat anything and everything that moves.
Yeah, they literally will eat anything that'll fit in their mouth.
He's coming towards you. Got him. These guys have a prehensile tail. You can see how it's always trying to, it wants to go up. You see, no matter what, it's always trying to go up.
There's some times when it's really harsh out here. It's not so pleasant, but most of the time we see beautiful things.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
There he goes. So he noticed I wasn't paying attention to him, and he...
Coming back to you.
Oh, I almost had it. There we go. 129.
The team needs to tread carefully. Deadly creatures also lurk in the dark.
He's a viper.
It's an infamous cottonmouth. One venomous bite will destroy living tissue and blood cells. Death comes through massive hemorrhaging.
We don't really mess with them much here, but we will note them, but we don't handle them. We are pretty far away from help. Just not worth the risk.
This is one of the richest wetlands in the world. a precious natural wonder. But it's vulnerable.
The Atchafalaya Basin pollution is a big deal because the water that comes down is full of pesticides and other potentially harmful pollutants coming from the crops in the Midwest and other places.
Outside forces could bring the whole system crashing down.
We're kind of like the toilet bowl of the whole entire Mississippi River drainage. Everything comes down here. Luckily, we have not seen any big die-offs of frogs like they've seen elsewhere, but we need to keep monitoring.
Thriving amphibians here are good news. It means the swamp is still healthy. But a rise in some swamp creatures could spell disaster. Infrared cameras reveal a creature with a $5 bounty on its head. This is a giant river rat, a nutria. The first ones escaped from fur farms in the 1930s. This invasive species never stops eating. They get through a quarter of their own body weight every day. Their insatiable appetites are changing the makeup of the swamp, and they're super fertile. Females can have up to 30 babies a year. By the 1950s, they numbered 20 million. And now, nobody knows how many there are spread right through the swamp. Down at the bottom of Atchafalaya's food chain is the amazing migrating river shrimp. Their breeding cycle is a miracle of the natural world. It begins upriver in spring. The shrimp feed here all winter. Then snow melt from the north swells the waters, and the females begin an epic journey. They travel over 200 kilometers down the Atchafalaya and then back again. It's a great migration in miniature, the equivalent of swimming from London to Nova Scotia and back. They carry a precious cargo of eggs. But it's a hazardous journey. Enemies lurk at every turn. Lying in ambush just below the surface is a monster, the largest bug in the world. 12 centimeters long, this is the giant water bug. Equipped with a snorkel-like breathing tube at its rear, it can stay submerged indefinitely. It waits as long as it takes for a meal to swim by. But river shrimp are no easy catch. Once caught, there's no way out. The bug's sharp beak is like a hypodermic needle, injecting a powerful paralyzing toxin and a digestive enzyme that liquefies the shrimp's insides, ready to be sucked up, eggs and all. By pre-digesting its prey, the killer bug can feed on creatures much larger than itself. But for the shrimps, this is a numbers game. Many will survive the brutal journey and reach their destination. Atchafalaya's immense salt marshes by the Gulf of Mexico. The mothers have endured their 200-kilometer ordeal for one reason only. This is where they can finally hatch their babies. These freshwater shrimp larvae need salt water to develop, an evolutionary hangover from their marine ancestry. The delicate, transparent newborns are swept out to sea. Three months later, the juveniles return, now able to survive in freshwater. They'll retrace their mother's epic journey all the way to where the Atchafalaya joins the mighty Mississippi. In the last 100 years, humans have profoundly marked Atchafalaya and its wildlife. Even the lords of the swamp, the alligators, were almost driven to extinction. So, in 1962, hunting was banned. It was tough on the Cajuns, who made money from their skins, oil, and meat. But it's paying off. Trip Daigle is an alligator egg collector looking for a nest. He must find it before the eggs start to hatch, and an aggressive mother shows up. He's part of a plan that has restored gators to the swamp.
You look down here toward the water, we can see where she's coming up. Right here, you see her footprints and her drag mark as she's coming up. She looks to be maybe about a 7-foot female. She's probably not too far from us right now, keeping an eye on us.
The nest is made of a fine mulch of twigs and grass, kept moist to stabilize the temperature. As Trip excavates her work, he keeps careful watch.
The only time I really get super nervous is when we're picking eggs.
But with 30 years' experience, Trip knows how to stay safe.
And here we go. This is the mother load.
A batch of about 30 eggs nestles in the mulch. Nest temperature determines sex. Cooler produces females. Over 33 degrees Celsius, only males.
It's very important that I do not turn this egg any other way than the way I picked it up. They have a band that's on the inside of the egg that attaches the embryo. If I were to twist this egg and put it upside down, it'll break the band and kill the embryo.
The embryos develop at breathtaking speed. The distinctive alligator shape appears after just 1 month. Another 4 weeks, and they are already perfect miniatures, ready to hatch. But the embryos tucked safely inside the eggs that Trip collects will not hatch in the wild. At the Instigator Ranch, wild alligator eggs are carefully incubated. When they're ready to emerge, their urgent calls summon help. They need an alligator mother to dig them out. Rancher John Price has played the role for 20 years.
Got my hands around an egg, and I've got my finger directly over the nose of an alligator. Come on, you. Come on out of there. His tail has come out.
Safe in John's hands, nearly all these hatchlings will survive.
And now, as you can see, you've got an alligator attached to his egg. He has an umbilical cord located right there.
For this alligator, it's an umbilical cord attached to a very safe but short life. John houses over 2,000 alligators at his farm. When they're two, most will be harvested, but some will be released back into the wild. Once they're over a meter long, they are strong enough to survive swamp life.
We take them deep into the marshes and swamps of Louisiana. Perfect. All right. You ready to go home, buddy?
Farming is good business for John and others like him. But it's also helping the Louisiana alligator come back from the brink of extinction.
Take the tape off of his mouth, making sure he doesn't turn around and bite us, because he may very well try. Here we go. See you later, buddy. There's no question the alligator is very primeval. The alligator's brain is smaller than his eyeball. There's really just not a lot going on in there.
Since farming began here in 1986, ranchers have returned nearly 1 million alligators to the swamp. Many more than would have survived on their own. These returnees have every chance of living and breeding back in the bayous alongside their mothers and wild cousins. Out in the swamp, there's another miniature world. Home to countless insects, including these tiny whirligig beetles. Weighing less than a grain of rice, they float and spin on the surface like a living raft. Unique split-level eyes give all-round vision. One half of the eye above the surface, the other keeping track of everything below. Underwater, they hang onto vegetation with an air bubble to breathe. Until they get airlifted back to the surface. Hungry beetles drift to the outside of the group. There's less competition for food, but there's always a chance of becoming someone else's dinner. Like this dragonfly larva, which would crunch them if it could. It's a delicate underwater baby, but already a killer. Death strikes in just 25 milliseconds. Its remarkable hinged jaw extends 1/3 of its own body length to grab the unsuspecting prey. This ravenous larva will remain submerged for up to a year before emerging as an adult dragonfly. But life on the wing may last only a couple of months. And some won't even survive that long. Golden threads and delicate webs decorate the trees lining the swamp. They can stretch to almost 6 meters, anchored by super strong support strands. They're the deadly traps of one of the largest North American spiders, the golden orb weaver. 7 centimeters of patient death. 5 times the strength of steel, their webs can even catch small birds. The killer waits, motionless. A venomous bite immobilizes and kills. The dragonfly is neatly wrapped in the spider's super strong silk. But the predator has problems. Thieves in her own backyard. Dewdrop spiders. Only a fraction of their host size, they keep to the outside of the web until there is a kill. While the killer feeds, they join in at the other end. And when things get risky, they abseil to safety. There's nothing left of the dragonfly's juicy goodness. Time to put out the rubbish. The dark, stagnant waterways are fringed by dry forests, home to a most surprising predator. A distinct subspecies of American black bear. They're extremely rare. Only 800 remain across their range in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And there are just 56 left in the upper Atchafalaya. It's the familiar story. Hunting and habitat loss. The bears have been protected since 1992, and Atchafalaya is a critical last refuge. Every new cub that survives is a victory. So biologists from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries monitor them closely. Maria Davidson leads their large carnivore program. She and her team are radio tracking a female bear they followed for years. When Maria last looked, the 15-year-old experienced mother had 2 newborn cubs in her den. The team wants to change her radio collar and check the babies. But the bear's signal is not where Maria expects it.
Isn't right. Isn't right. Did she move?
The team must try and find the female bear's den in thick undergrowth. They sometimes move their cubs, but no more than a few meters. Her den is empty.
I don't know if this means that she lost her cubs, so she left her nest, or she was disturbed somehow and wanted to move the cubs from here, but I guess we'll track her down and see what we find.
With so few bears, losing the cubs would be a serious blow. Black bears reproduce slowly. Sows usually aren't ready to breed until they are 3 years old. And even then, they'll only mate every other year. Cub survival is not assured. In some parts of the US, less than half will make it. Maria has to find the mother. Finally, a glimpse. They need to tranquilize her to approach safely. They've found the mother. But there is no sign of the cubs.
1, 2, 3. Oh my goodness. There we go. Not very big, but she's fat. No, it's hard to know what happened to the cubs. You know, male bears are certainly cub predators and could possibly have come across her nest. There are feral hogs on this property. She is still lactating. She still does have milk, so she's lost her cubs anywhere within the last week or two.
All they can do is refresh her radio collar.
Everybody good?
It's a disappointment for us today, but the good news is, you know, bears are resilient. She'll come into estrus this year, she'll breed, and we'll do another den visit on her next year. Goodbye, fatty. See you next year.
Okefenokee is a welcome last refuge for the bears. Countless other creatures survive in this dark and mysterious water world. A remote wilderness supporting an extraordinary natural bounty.
Next in Nordic Wild, discover how animals have evolved amazing strategies for survival, from the Arctic fox's furry coat to a tough new breed of horse.